Hey everyone, welcome to the completely revamped podcast here during the high school football season. 2 was kind of a drag on just trying to get everything together, and also was kind of, saying kind of
a little redundant.
We were a little repeating ourselves in some of the stuff, so we felt this would be the best way is to just do one podcast. You'll get it on Tuesday. Should premiere around 5 o'clock every Tuesday. We're calling it now the State Champs Michigan High School Football Extra Point and Prediction Podcast. So to keep it simple, if you like, acronyms, where it's the EP&P. It's the EPAP, the Extra Point and Prediction Podcast. EP&P.
A fresh take on State Champs podcast perspectives.
Yes.
And we're going to reshape this thing, reformat it, and we'll be off and running.
That's what we do because we can. So, Matt Mowry, Scott Bernstein, I'm Lauren Plant. We're all here for you, and we'll do this the rest of the way. So we're hitting week 8 now. It's obviously a massive season in the high school football, playoff picture and all of that. So what we're going to do today is we're going to recap the games that we kind of predicted on the forecast. We're going to talk about who was right and who was wrong in terms of predictions. We are going to also then cover what is going on in the Hungry Howie's Mr. Football and State Champs Anvil Award competitions. We are making a change in our Mr. Football race, so that's coming up a little bit later. We will have Alan True give us the Michigan Student Aid Recruit Report later in the show. Matt Mowry's going to quickly talk about some of the movement in his rankings, and then we're going to get to the top games for Week 8 of the football season. That will include the games we'll cover on television as well as some other games around the state, and we'll do the whole prediction thing at the end of the show. So we got a lot to get to, so we're going to get going. I do want to thank the sponsors of our podcast, as always, Lawrence Technological University, the MHSAA, and Hungry Howie's. I want to congratulate Lawrence Tech once again for a big win over Trinity Bible in North Dakota, 65-12, I believe, or something was the final.
2,000 miles traveled both ways.
Yeah. So they're putting up 65, it seems like, every week. But, this was an actual team, and congratulations to them. If you're interested in Lawrence Tech football, want to know more about it, we have a podcast that airs on the network as well as at LTUathletics.com. We do it every Tuesday night, but then we put it out the next day on Wednesday, so you can expect to see that. We talk with the head coach, and we talk with some of the players and everything that's happening with Lawrence Tech football. All right. Here's what happened last week on State Champs. If you missed any of the show, you can check out all the highlights right now on our YouTube, Facebook. You can check it out on Twitter. Of course, we've got it at our website, statechampsnetwork.com. I always encourage you to go to our website. It seems like websites are almost obsolete nowadays, but not in the State Champs Sports Network stratosphere. Matt Mowry's got his rankings up there. He's got game stories. He's got feature articles. Scott Bernstein's always throwing blogs up there, as well as our rundown vlog that both you and Matt do together. Always great information out there. And again, talking hoops already, stuff like that's happening. And, of course, a lot of movement in the recruiting world, which I know a lot of you people eat up. So check it out.
Commitments, coaching changes.
That's right. Yeah, it seems
breakout stars, sleeper specials.
That's right.
It's all there.
Yeah, you've got all the vernacular when it comes to sweet little nicknames.
My supersonic sleeper specials.
Yes, absolutely. And again, there's already movement in that whole Renaissance basketball coaching fiasco. A fiasco looks like he might be going back now.
Well, it looks like that the courts might step in and demand that Renaissance rehire him.
So if you want kind of a good synopsis on what took place, go and check out the video blog, the vlog, as it were, on our website, statechampsnetwork.com, that Scott and Matt Mowry did last week. So you can see that.
Talk all about the Vito Jordan boys basketball fiasco over at Renaissance.
And it sure is. All right, let's get to the game. So Marine City went on the road to take on St. Clair. We all felt that the Mariners were a team that is preparing itself to make a long run in the playoffs, but along came the Saints. And it looked like we had a great game, 35-21 the final in this one, but we all predicted that Marine City would win this one.
Ethan Mon was the man. For St. Clair, ran for almost 200 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns, and it's a cliche, but big time players step up in big time games, and St. Clair made a statement with that victory.
Well, yeah, rushed for almost 300 yards as a team, 297, I think, and Mon had 188 of it, and then Brady Gleason ran for 1 and threw for 1. It was a pretty resounding defeat for Marine City. It sounded like they really kind of stifled them throughout this game.
Well, another one that was a resounding defeat was number 9 Warren De La Salle going to Davison. And Davison, we had ranked 20 in the state coming in. Of course, all of you felt that Davison would win at home.
What? To me, you know what this says?
And I said that Warren De La Salle would do so.
I'll tell you what this tells me.
All LP
is that you never underestimate the Catholic League Central.
Yeah.
A team, they could be, going visiting a team from a different conference, and that team could be, on fire like Davison is. But the schedule that you play in the Catholic League Central, the type of players that matriculate to the Catholic League Central, the type of football they play, it's the ultimate equalizer. And they went in there and stomped on a Davison team that had been playing lights out with a backup quarterback. So
yeah,
it's just hats off to Coach Giannoni and those pilots.
Well, and when Anthony Stepnitz went down, and there were a couple of quarterback injuries in that span in the Catholic League Central, and we kind of wondered how the fate of the teams would be tied to those quarterbacks. Yeah, Schultz has come in and just absolutely they haven't missed a beat. I mean, what do you have, 3 first-half touchdowns in this game? I kind of almost jokingly said that he wasn't going to put up Cannon Hall numbers in this game because that's not really his job, but he almost kind of did. I mean, he had an impressive game, and he's had an impressive run in this last couple of weeks, and with the defense that team has.
Yeah.
Well, I was looking at what Davidson had done to both Southwood A&T from the OA Red and FCA Flint Carman Ainsworth, and kind of trying to translate that into what was going to happen against De La Salle, and it just I miscalculated.
Well, I mean, again, you're right. Never underestimate the Central. That's the one thing about high school football. You see these ebbs and flows sometimes, and you just can't call it. And De La Salle rallied again. Giannoni teams are going to be tough defensively, and that's what they said. Look, no matter what, if we limit them to 7 points, we're going to win the game. So,
and we've talked a lot about Josh DeBerry as a receiver and how impressive he is both ways. He picked off Cannon Hall in this game. Yeah. Second interception of the year for Cannon Hall. He's been so impressive, and I believe this is the first game all year long that he's been held out of the end zone. Their only touchdown against De La Salle came on defense with a long fumble return.
And the talk is now that De La Salle may end up in Division III, which will be an interesting scenario.
Of teams slipping down
that
just
could fall.
Based on how many teams in the bottom.
We could see De La Salle Muskegon again at some point, maybe at Ford Field. Millington and Frankenmuth got together. Millington falls to 5-2. Frankenmuth 6-1 now with a 35-12 win. We all call that.
And Frankenmuth wins the league championship. So winner, chicken dinner for everyone up there.
That's right. That's right.
Well, this is one of those games, too, where you have a game plan, and it sounded like Millington thought, okay, we're going to shut down the veer option. We're not going to let them run the ball. But that's part of the equation. Yeah. What happened was Frankenmuth adjusted and went to the air, and Nick Hartman had 6 catches for 164 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Connor Campbell completed 8 of 12 passes for 205 yards and 3 touchdowns, and well, that's the second part of the chess match. You get the first move, but then the second move is making that secondary adjustment, and Frankenmuth kind of won that portion of the calculation contest.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Of the games we had on State Champs, they're one of the few at home that actually won this week. So we've had a lot of road dogs getting victories. That's
where I was at. We're about to talk about the game in the LVC. I was out at South Lyon, visited Waterford Mott. It was a great game, and South Lyon continues the hot streak. They're undefeated and took another step towards an unexpected LVC title that it looks like, if they can win this week against Wild Lake Western, looks like they'll wrap up. And
despite you choosing Waterford Mott at home to win the game.
Well, what I will say, I said it was a gut check time and a time to look in the mirror for Waterford Mott, and they showed a lot of heart in this game. And
only lost 21-14.
Lost 21-14. South Lyon came in to the Corsairs home and walked out with the victory. But Corsairs played real scrappy, and they had a backup quarterback and a backup running back. And really, if some things would have gone a little differently, they would have played a little smarter. They would have not made some of the mistakes they made going down the stretch. They've easily won that. Not easily come out on top their backup quarterback, Trevor Ely, over 300 yards combined from scrimmage, and only his, I think first or second start. But this was the story of this game was South Lyon, and just came in to Mott and did what they've been doing all season, playing fundamentally sound football, gritty, gutty, intelligent football, mistake-free football. Ian Goins, their senior running back, who missed the first 3 games of the year with an injury, went over the Century Plateau for the second time in 4 weeks, ran for 110, caught a 16-yard touchdown pass from Connor Fracassi. Guys like Jesse Powell and on that defense doing really a great job. Mitch Hanna, and really impressed with Coach Henson has those South Lyon Lions doing this year.
Well, and I covered the kind of the opposite end of the equation for next week's matchup. I covered Walled Lake Western on Friday. They managed to kind of hold off a South Lyon East team that has been the secondary surprise in that South Lyon area. Really good defense for South Lyon East, and they held that offense for Walled Lake Western in check for the vast majority of the game, and Western kind of finally popped a long one near the end of the game. But
only had 12 points.
Yeah, only had 12 points, and South Lyon East's only points came on a kickoff return, so it was, so 2 field goals and a kickoff return, and then the one long pass that set up a short touchdown run. But in talking with Alex Grignan, who came over from South Lyon, I said, "Did you see this coming? Could you kind of tell that the seeds were there for this?" Because
they were 1-8. South Lyon was 1-8 last year. They started 13 or 14 sophomores that are juniors now.
He said with all that youth that got experience last year and how hard they busted their butts in the offseason and all the workouts. Remember, he came over to Western very late, so he was part of a lot of the offseason stuff at South Lyon too. And he said, I wouldn't have left just for anything. I mean, obviously, he very, plum opportunity to go to Walled Lake Western and be the head coach, and that's, and that's your aspiration. You grab a chance, a shot whenever you get it. But he knew that was a good situation. He was leaving. He was definitively not leaving, because that program was going nowhere or anything like that. He said he still, talks quite a bit with the offensive coordinator and the offensive staff over there, although they're discussions by text may be a little curtailed this week going into their matchup, but it's going to be a good matchup to kind of, and it will kind of, I don't think this league race will be settled until week 9, but this is a very, very definitively big game.
And Mott, who had been sitting 4-1, I believe, has lost 3 of 4, and they need to win out to get into the postseason.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, this is the championship game for the Lakes Valley this week. So South Lyon East is still left on the schedule for South Lyon, but they already have a couple losses. So they would have so South Lyon would have to lose, and then So anyway, that's where we're at. So game that I shot, I went to Lutheran Westland. It was homecoming there, and taking on a Detroit Public Safety team. I was real curious to kind of see again. You talk about small schools and numbers. I mean, it's like each team's got like 7-8 guys on the sidelines when a particular side of the ball is on the field. But it was all public safety. Lutheran Westland came out, scored first, looked good on their first drive. And then public safety kind of just went to work. I want to definitely shout out, they got a sophomore QB.
Bridges.
Small. I mean, he barely, you could see him over the line. I'm trying to kind of find where the ball's going to be snapped. And just a sophomore, but he can sling it. He's a southpaw, and he has a junior wideout, Maurice Williams, who scored a couple of touchdowns in the first half. They went 22 unanswered in the second to win. And again, they've only been a program for a couple of years. I think it's 3 years. This might be their 4th. The bottom line is, they were so excited. They're in the playoffs. They did the water drop on the coach. And again, you can tell for a school, and again, Detroit Public Safety is a school that basically is preparing the next generation of firefighters and policemen. So that's what this charter school is. It's kind of connected to Central Michigan. Let's get to what took place on the main event this week. A game we were very excited about, the battle for Dearborn Heights.
Another league title handed out.
Absolutely. Crestwood and Robichaud of Dearborn Heights both getting together. These were 2 undefeated teams. First time this had happened, probably ever, that they were both undefeated at this point in the season. Sean and I were the 2 that correctly predicted this outcome, but again, a great game no matter what, 32-22.
Did you notice that he always points out when he correctly picked
yeah,
it,
yeah,
and
exactly.
we gloss over it
That's right.
otherwise?
That's right.
Yeah,
oh, that's right, because I said Lutheran Westland would win in that one. You're right. But I did correctly pick South Lyon, as did Sean and Matt, as you took Mott. Sorry. You're right. You're right.
Sorry,
I do do that. I do that, yes.
This is one where you have a game of this magnitude, especially for teams that haven't necessarily been in it before, and Crestwood jumps out to an 18-0 lead after 15 minutes of the game, and that can be, for a team that hasn't been in this position bestbefore, that can be deflating. Now, Robichaud battled right back, and they've got that young quarterback. He made it 18-14. But then I believe Crestwood recovered an onside kick to start the second half. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
John shot that.
Yeah. But it seemed like that was the turning point in the game, and then Crestwood kind of pulled away in the second half. They had Adam Kassab, who ran for 181 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Jaquan Smith for 2 scores.
I haven't seen Kassab, but listening to his coach Mike Berry talk about what a workhorse this kid is and what kind of a madman he is, the motor on him, the relentless spirit, just the grit and tenacity that he displays when he runs the ball. I think he said something like, "This guy's going 1,000 miles an hour, no matter whether he is on offense, whether he's on defense, snap to snap. This guy is a playmaker, and it took him to a league championship."
Absolutely. I do want to mention another game that we did have on the show as far as Grand Rapids go. Muskegon Mona Shores held on to beat Jenison 49-42. They remain undefeated.
Well, we're going to have a feature this week on Jenison quarterback Kyle Knott, who has kind of engineered he's part of engineering a little bit of a turnaround there in Jenison. Obviously, they played the big boys the last 2 weeks. They played Muskegon and Mona Shores, but they still have to get a chance to get into the playoffs for the first time in a long time over the next 2 weeks at 4-2. So that kind of show. I think that was maybe a little bit of a coming out party that I think we all expected Mona Shores would win that game, but Jenison put on a heck of a show to stay right with them, and it'll be interesting to see, next couple of weeks if they get those wins that they need to get into the playoffs. That'll be fun to watch in the playoffs. A team that hasn't been there in a long time, that has a shot to do something. It'll be interesting to see what Jenison does from here on out.
Just backtracking for a second, Crestwood won the league title and qualified for the playoffs for the first time in 13 years. Kind of similar to
very similar, very similar. It was a great atmosphere out there. And so those are all the games that you can watch on State Champs, whether it's our YouTube page, Facebook, on Twitter, or of course at our website, statechampsnetwork.com. That's everything we had on the show this past week. And some other games of interest around the state. We'll kind of quickly run through these. Oxford and Clarkston.
This was a crazy weekend.
Yes, it was.
Week 7 for the MHSA football, at least in Metro Detroit, was just upset city.
Yep. Now, again, a few weeks back, we would have said, hey, Oxford might have a chance of winning this game because of how well they were playing. Kind of stumbled, so we all kind of just said Clarkston's going to roll this thing. And that's what happens when you just say things on paper.
And they dialed up a defense that kept the 3 Jakes in check, Jake Jensen, Jake Honstetter, and Jake Billette, and Drew Carpenter, the Oxford senior or I'm not sure if he's a senior or a junior. Drew Carpenter, the quarterback for the Wildcats, game-winning touchdown in the last 20 seconds, and Bud Rowley's group is rolling.
Yeah, and Clarkston's only offense really came on special teams, right, with a couple of kick returns for scores by Josh Luther and a field goal. And other than that, when you can keep an offense off the board, essentially, you got a real good chance. And that game-winning touchdown, that was special. I saw that highlight.
Yeah. Drew's a junior.
Okay, yeah, Drew Carpenter.
2020.
Yeah.
So, again, 20-17 was the final in this one. To do it in Clarkston, who we have 5th ranked in the state, fantastic for them. And again, we love it because it just means that, there is nobody invincible out there. The playoffs are going to be super exciting. And
West Bloomfield lost to A&T.
Boom.
Adams beat Harrison.
Yes.
Harrison.
Yes.
CC lost
to Orchard Lake St. Mary's. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we talk about the rankings.
Yeah.
It was like I moved a whole block of teams south, 4 or 5 spots.
Yep. Well, another one that you could deem an upset, only the fact that Romeo had been playing so well too. But Macomb Dakota, we got them ranked 19th. They moved to 6-1. Double overtime. This one took. Only Sean Belizean predicted this one to win, but it was Dakota and the Toko train.
More Toko magic.
37-30 over Romeo.
2 touchdowns in the air, 2 touchdowns on the ground for Toko. I mean, he's been really consistent all year long in being very, very good, and he's one of those guys we've talked about a lot, but maybe doesn't get quite enough credit for being a pretty good high school quarterback.
And the guy that I want to shout out there that I've been getting some emails about, linebacker Jeremiah Major, who I think had 12 or 13 tackles in that game, and a guy that's I like using the term, a real force of nature, sideline to sideline for that defense. It looks like he might matriculate into college ranks to Mount Union, which is a Division III superpower. So I wouldn't be shocked with a talent like him if some D2 schools come in and maybe even some smaller D1 schools. But he's the guy that's the kind of the motor that makes that defense run.
This is kind of one of those taking care of business games for Dakota, because if they want a shot at having at least a share of that MAC Red title, had to win this one, and then now they have to get some help. They have to beat Eisenhower next week, and then they have to get some help from Romeo, which takes on Chip Valley, which I know is going to be one of the games that we're focusing on next week. That this is what you kind of have to have the first part before you can get the second part.
Need a little help.
Yeah,
you got to win out. You need a little help.
But it keeps those hopes alive for yet another week.
God, I picked Romeo. My win-loss record last week was horrid.
Yes, it is.
I was 6 and 9.
I'd like to actually do a whole composition of a compiling of all of how we've been. And I think, Sean, you might be at the bottom of the barrel overall. Just not your season so far.
All right.
But
I'll rebound.
Yeah, Fenton and Flushing got together. Both teams now 5-2 on the season, as it was Flushing getting a convincing win at home, 26-7 the final. We all thought Fenton would be able to go on the road and win this one. We were all wrong.
Well, and we thought that this was kind of one of those that it's been their house for a long time, 7 straight years. I think that they've had at least a share of the Flint Metro title.
Yep.
And this was kind of their last gasp to hold on to that, and it did slip through their fingers. Won't be a part of the discussion for the title necessarily, but they're still going to have an impact because Swartz Creek, who's leading the pack, goes to Fenton next week. And then has
team we'll talk about later in the show.
And then has Brandon in week 9. So Swartz Creek has been kind of the leader in the clubhouse, but hasn't shut the door so far because they still got Fenton and Brandon, who are 2 tough teams. They've got 3 teams with a chance. Swartz Creek is 6-0, Flushing is 5-1, and Brandon is 5-1 in the league right now. So it's going to come down to these next 2 weeks. Flushing's got Clio and then Kearsley, and Brandon's got the rivalry game against Holly, and then they've got Swartz Creek in the last week of the season. So it's not over, although Fenton really doesn't, mathematically is going to be hard for them. I haven't crunched the numbers to see. I don't think it's possible for them to get back in it, but they can still affect the race at this point.
Well, that's I would say that's at the position you want to be in. Now, I think Swartz Creek is 6-1.
6-1 overall, 6-0 in the conference.
Got it. 6-0 in the Flint Metro, right?
Dude,
just tell me yes, exactly.
Yep.
So, it's. I mean, again, Fenton is, regardless of the title, they can look to playoffs, but 2 very tough games, Swartz Creek, then Waterford Mott to end the year. And Mott's playoffs hopes might be riding on that one. So that will be very interesting to see how that turns out. And that's kind of an interesting kind of final game there, too, to have going on. So Three Rivers and Edwardsburg got together.
It was the Trey Harvey show.
Exactly. And but again, Sean, you thought Three Rivers was going to win this game, and it was the Eddies, 38-15, taking this one. They are perfect on the year, and again, a real force to be reckoned with.
I heard there was like 4,000 people at this game. Yeah. I mean, that's like,
wow.
It would be a cat burglar's fantasy to just, rummage through that town when everyone's at the football game.
Yeah.
Because it was like a, ghost town on Main Street when everyone was out watching these two squads slug it out. But Trey Harvey had over, I think, close to 300 yards combined from scrimmage, ran for like 160, 170, threw for 160, 170, and he's a dynamo.
Yeah, we mentioned on the preview show that this was one where Three Rivers had won this game in the regular season last year.
Right.
Edwardsburg got a little bit of revenge in the playoffs, but it's still nice for them to come back in the regular season and kind of reassert the fact that they're the dominant team in that league, and then conceivably we could see them in the playoffs again, which would be another probably barn burner.
Yeah, and that. Yeah, that happens so often where, you've got rivalries that you have to face almost right away in the first round of the playoffs. So another matchup that we had going on, Traverse City, St. Francis, and Sheboygan getting together. I know Sheboygan are your boys.
Yeah, as much as I love my boys and my kind of adopted up north town and community, I didn't pick them.
No, you
because
didn't.
I kind of foresaw this happening. That
St.
Francis is a little too much to handle if you're the Chiefs.
Yeah, 49-8 was the final. I just wanted to get that in there, and they moved to 7-0. St. Francis.
St. Francis had 35 of those points in the first half, and they had 5 different players ran for touchdowns. Artie Duttmers had 2 of them. And it's one of those where they didn't let Sheboygan linger around at all, and you kind of put the foot right on the neck. The Gladiators actually, now that they've sealed up the conference title, they play winless Kalkaska next week, and then they got a doozy of a non-conference game in the last week of the season. New Lothrop, who's also unbeaten. So that's going to be one of those, too.
Who has Flushing's old star, Aiden Harrison, headed to Missouri.
Yeah, and that's with New Lothrop, when we saw him go there, that was kind of like, oh, well, that's just a cherry on top, because that was a good team coming in. Yeah. Wasn't like he was the one who made the difference. That was a very, very good program, but that should be a barn burner.
Well, it's kind of nice, too, when you've already got everything sewed up. Here's our test. Yeah. Let's just the playoffs start today.
Yep.
And if you do lose that game, you have a chance to come back and play, but it also says, hey, boys, it's win or go home. Yeah. So, let's play a great team and see how we come out. Grass Lake is a great team. Yeah. They are 7-0 after beating Napoleon 32-7. This was a road win for them, one that we all felt the way it would shake out. So good on Grass Lake.
Well, and they've been kind of one of those teams that had been a powerhouse in that conference, and last year was not their year. They ended up being out of discussion. I believe they are tri-champions in the league. And over the last 2 weeks, they've kind of come into the season going, this is our league. We're going to take it back now. They've beaten 2 of the 3 tri-champions. They've held 4 straight opponents to 10 points or less, and they've Sean Hickey had 131 yards passing, ran for another score. Trenton Holden ran for 138 yards and 3 scores. Pretty emphatic over the last couple of weeks where they've kind of shut the door on everyone else in this league to clinch the title.
All right, well, a couple other ones that we felt were interesting matchups turned out to be the favorites won handily. Spring Lake is 5-2 on the year if they fall to Grand Rapids Catholic Central, who moves to 6-1, 35-12. That one, and the Middleville at East Grand Rapids game. We all felt that East EGR would hold it down at home. They did. They win 33-13. Really good statement win for them as well.
It's with the Catholic Central win, they just kind of Spring Lake was one of those stories to start out the season that very nice story, and then they kind of run into a buzzsaw over the last couple of weeks. In Grand Rapids Catholic Central is playoff bound for the 11th straight year, had 400 yards offense with Joe Collins throwing for, I think, 170 yards and 2 touchdowns. And this sets up a very interesting game between Catholic Central and West Catholic for that league title in the OK. It's gonna that'll be one of those fun ones this weekend that will kind of clinch up a league title. And then East Grand Rapids just kind of did what East Grand Rapids has been doing to everyone since a kind of a bumpy start to the season. And Middleville was another one of those kind of good stories that had come out of nowhere and then kind of run into the big boys in the conference and fallen back.
GRC's got some nice college prospects that we're going to talk about. One of them with Alan True. And then obviously they sent Mr. Mayfield over to Ann Arbor. Jalen Mayfield's with the Wolverines right now, and they got they got Jace Williams, who we're going to talk about with Alan True, and they got Luke Harmon on the offensive line, who I believe is going to Bowling Green. Okay. So they got some nice some nice talent in the cupboard is far from bare.
Yeah, absolutely, and now a perennial state championship contender for sure. But good stories about Spring Lake and Middleville. Both are 5-2. They just need to get into the playoffs, and who knows how they'll do. So I'm glad that you did a little summary. So on the predictions this week, Sean Belizean went 10-4. Good on Sean. I went 9-5. Matt 8-6. Bernie 6-9. So that's where we fell out after a week 7 of action. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Hungry Howie's Mr. Football race and the state champs Anvil Award, and we'll go over what's happening with both of those when the state champs Michigan High School Football Extra Point and Prediction podcast continues.
My passion is architecture. I don't want to sit around passively studying. I need to create. In our architecture studios at Lawrence Tech, we collaborate with students, faculty, and professionals from around the world. And from day one, we design using the same industry standard software that architecture firms use. I really feel like I'm designing my own future here. Lawrence Tech, possible is everything.
I ordered 2 large Howie Mauis with butter cheese crust.
Wow, you are one serious breast cancer awareness supporter.
Warrior for love, hope, and pizza. Can't seem to reach my wallet.
Flavor fanatics love us because for every pizza sold in October, a portion goes to the National Breast Cancer Foundation. Now get a medium one-topping pizza for $1 when you buy a large one-topping pizza at regular menu price.
Hungry?
Howie's!
All right, welcome back to the State Champs Michigan High School Football Extra Point and Prediction Podcast. That is what this thing has evolved into. We just have one podcast now per week. We felt that would be better. We'll just get it all knocked out. We'll talk a little bit about what took place over the weekend. We'll talk a little about what's going to be taking place this weekend, and we've got some stuff in between. Now we're in between. And what we want to talk about here is the Hungry Howie's Mr. Football Race and the State Champs Anvil Award.
The hardware.
That's right. So we have kind of our smaller versions of the awards here. The actual one that's given out actually has another level of platform, and this anvil here that we actually have created is going to be plated coming up as well. So it will look a little cooler. But this is an actual anvil.
I think it looks pretty cool right now.
It does. If you try to pick that thing up, it's heavy. it's like a 12-pound anvil. So anyway, that's what we got going on. So a couple of things, because these races kind of mirror each other, so a lot of the criteria in that stays the same. So as far as the timeline, this is pretty much the way it's going to go. The top 10 is going to freeze after week 1 of the playoffs. Voting will end Wednesday, November 21st at noon. That's a few days following the state semifinals. Final 4 will be chosen and announced on our State Champs State Finals TV show, which airs Sunday, November 24th at 9 a.m. on Fox Sports Detroit. Now, it's possible we might leak out some things that happen maybe on a podcast or something. Maybe. That's just for you guys if we do that. Our champion will be crowned a few days later following the state finals with a full feature on our final State Champs TV show of the year, which is December 2nd at 9 a.m. on Fox Sports Detroit. There is one caveat that might get mixed in, and that is with reference to the Anvil Award and when that will actually be announced. There could be something very cool that's in the works. I'm not going to tease it, nor am I going to jinx it. These guys don't even know. But that is what we are working on, and if it does happen, it's just awesome for our first year in handing out this award. Now, the selection criteria that goes, because a lot of people wonder, how do you guys pick Mr. Football or this Anvil Award winner? How do you guys do that? So it's very simple, and it's on our website. And this selection criteria has not changed, and it actually, we feel, is a very fair and determining process on who should win. So 30% of the vote, or 30% of how we decide, is your performance throughout the season. So we rank basically your performance throughout the season, and 30% of the selection criteria is there. 20% is your level of competition. So do you play a stacked schedule? Like, for instance, for Austin Brown, no discredit to him, but Madison's strength of schedule is much different than that of, say, Sam Johnson's.
Yeah, well, it's a Division 7 program versus a Division 1 or 2 program.
Yeah, exactly. So, but again, that if other factors weigh in, it could even it out to where it would be in Austin's favor. The online vote is 15%. So the online vote is a big way of the online vote is 20%. My bad. I'm sorry. Yeah, 20% level of competition, 20% is the online vote. So this is big. So Sam Johnson is our leading vote getter right now. If he wins, he automatically, and again, there's been even talk like, gosh, Sam Johnson, if he was not the leading vote getter, he may fall out of our top 10. So
the offense has only scored 19 points the last 2 weeks.
So there you go. So Sam Johnson, though, his fans are keeping him in this race. If he does win the online vote, he's in the Final Four, and he will automatically have a 20% advantage over everyone else because he wins that category. That's how it works. 15% goes to big game performance. So obviously playoffs. Some of these games at the end of the season, Waterford Mott playing a Swartz Creek or something, or Fenton. Fenton, I'm sorry. Okay, bad example, but. For instance,
but I mean that is, I think that's legitimate though. You look at Southwood A&T's got to play Rouge.
Yes.
That last week.
Yes, for Jerron McKinney is a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. All right. The PSL championship game. We'll have Daquan Finn and Jaron Mangum both on display in that one. That's big. Highly recruited athlete. This is we don't want to put. We really originally didn't want to put any credence toward this, but there is some value. You are a highly recruited athlete. In the Mr. Football race, there needs to have something that's there that goes to that 5% of that. So if, again, a lot of factors are even, if let's say, just throw it out there. Let's just say Daquan Finn and Isaac Van Dyke end up being all equal in all other categories.
Finn would have the leg up because of the college recruiting.
Exactly.
And out of the 10,
at the end.
Out of the 10 of these candidates, seven of them are considered genuine Division I recruits.
Yes, exactly. So with that said, and we're going to start with the Mr. Football race, we do have a change in our top 10. Now, we do not have it on the website as of this moment. We'll have it up there a little bit later in the week so you can begin voting for this gentleman. I have seen Stevie Wonder Walker play this season. Matt Mowry has seen Stevie Walker play, and he ran for 377 yards on 19 carries, 5 touchdowns versus Howell. Granted, a Howell team that is not as good as Highland.
Anytime you're close to 400 yards, I don't care who you're playing for. That is a game to remember.
That's right.
This
is Division I we're talking about.
That is a benchmark in your career.
And he has been racking up, and we do.
He's the real deal Holyfield in the backfield.
We do not have his complete stats and everything as of right. I'm telling you, they will blow you away when you see him. His numbers are gaudy. Granted, he runs in an offense, the tight T at Canton, that is, if you are a one who has speed and explosiveness, you are going to do well in this offense because they hide the ball so well as to, if the quarterback's got it.
He runs with power, though, too.
I mean,
he's a guy that can go up in between the tackles and, isn't afraid of contact.
Most of his runs are, those quick hitters straight up the middle, and all of a sudden the seam is split, and he's 24 yards downfield before you even realize who's got the ball.
And if you talk about, there's not a lot of separation between, say, the linebacker and Steve. They know Walker's going to get the ball. Right. And, Walker's got basically a fraction of a second to make a move on this linebacker who's coming full bore, and a lot of times he will sidestep.
He's got great field vision, and I haven't seen him this year, but I saw him last year. Yeah. And what really jumped out about him to me last year, obviously about him on the offensive side of the ball, but he's a pretty hard-hitting safety on the defensive side of the ball. I'm not sure how many snaps he's getting on defense this year, but last year, he could lay the wood.
Yeah. He's playing.
And I think a lot of times at this level, guys that play both ways, especially whether you're in the backfield, that your performance on defense and the foundation that for you as a football player on defense can a lot of times translate to offense. Like I just said about his field vision. He knows what how the defense is stacking up against him. He knows what to look for. He knows all the ins and outs, the seams to try to exploit.
So Canton's 5-2 right now. They have losses to Brighton and Livonia Churchill. Churchill right off the bat, which was an upset at home. But a lot of times in week one, stuff like that can happen. They have really had some big wins. Tough loss to Brighton, 23-17. That was the game you were at. Yeah, in overtime. They've come back to thump Novi and Howell in back-to-back weeks, putting 35 and 48 up respectively. They've got Heartland this week.
So we should tell people that he's going to replace Oak Park quarterback Dwan Mathis.
Correct. That was going to be my next point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was just finishing that, and then again, there's a crossover, and if they do, what a great way to set up the playoffs. Canton and Fordson, two teams again. We know the Fordson fans are very passionate about this particular team.
Well, and two teams that are just outside the top 25 kind of area. They're in the 30 to 30, 30.
Oh, you don't have Fordson in the top 25, Matt?
I do not.
I've had. You heard anything about that? Has anyone mentioned
Is there anyone who maybe thinks that?
Yes.
Any Tractors fans that are showing up at your house, knocking on your door at 3 in the morning?
Yeah, you're going to give out my phone number in a second, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, again, we can do that when we have no credibility. Yeah. It's just the way it is. We can just kind of do whatever we want from now on. But we're going to have some great matchups. Steve Walker is in. Scott mentioned it, Dwan Mathis. We are pulling out right now, and again, sometimes you are a victim of circumstance of the offense you play in. Although I understand he did have a pretty good game on Friday night.
It's
just not centered around
their league
him.
Is a little top heavy this year, and they played their 2 toughest games to start the year. Yeah. Now they'll have a couple tough matches in the end of the season, but they've kind of been playing the cupcakes and beating the cupcakes like they should.
Yeah.
So
he's going to have a chance to play his way back.
It's great to be ho hum 7-0.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
I'm sure
Greg Carter would want it no other way.
I'm sure Dwan Mathis would rather be 7-0 and out of the football race, or out of the Mr. Football race at this juncture, than to be 5-2 or 4-3 and putting up big numbers.
Which is exactly kind of why he's been limited somewhat, because Greg Carter does not want to throw the ball all over the field with the running backs that they have and the line that they have.
And he's not a run score up type guy.
Yeah, no, and he's going to play. They played it pretty close to the vest, and primarily they want to pound the ball. And now he's some part of that where he runs, design quarterback runs and quarterback draws and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, they haven't been slinging it around the yard. He could.
Well, I'll tell you what, you've got West Bloomfield and Clarkson in the last 2 weeks. Both of those teams are going to design themselves to stop the run. Yeah. And so this is going to be the opportunity where Mathis is going to have late game and mid game choices to make.
The cupcake circuit is over.
It is.
It's now you're going to sit with the big boys, and he showed that obviously he's a 3-year starter.
Yeah.
He showed at the beginning of the campaign with really nice wins against Ike and Groves.
Yep.
And now it's time to go into the next gear right now.
Right. And you mentioned that one part of the consideration is big game performance and how he did early in the year in those 2 wins that were over Groves and Ike, and these last 2 particularly are going to factor into whether or not he
and
has
Harrison,
a chance.
He beat Harrison. He beat Harrison without Malik Carr.
Yep.
So Carr's back now, and I think he had a couple touchdown catches last week, and he's a guy that's got like some ridiculous yards per catch. He's averaging 40 yards per catch or something.
Yeah. So again, this is a fluid award, and we will have opportunities for other guys to play their way in. Again, we don't close out the top 10 until after week 1 of the playoffs. And again, these are opportunities that regardless of the voting, maybe you come in at a later stage like Steve Walker is right now, and you will have an opportunity to still be in our Final Four just based on, because only the online vote champion gets in.
And what I like about it right now, with this specific situation of putting Walker in and taking Mathis out, Dwan Mathis, it's like, you want to be back in the race? You have every opportunity to get back in the race. You got 2 big games, West Bloomfield and Clarkson. You go out and you play big in those 2 games. You're back in the race and possibly have a chance to make a late run.
Right, and I want to make a correction for the record, because I had not deep dove this as much as I should before we did this podcast, which we do on a Tuesday. Austin Brown has taken over as the online vote leader right now with 7,301 votes. This is as of 1 o'clock on Tuesday. And Sam Johnson has fallen down to second with 6,208. So we are not going to change what we're doing. Dwan Mathis has only got 115 votes this season, so the Oak Park crew did not really come out and support him as much as we would have liked them to. But I will say this. Dwan Mathis is still going to fall out of the race. However, Sam Johnson has got an opportunity this week to really impress the selection committee, and it's going to give an opportunity for some other guys perhaps to get in. Maybe Julian Barnett climbs back into the top 10 if we feel Sam Johnson is not up to snuff. Maybe Tate Halleck at Forest Hill Central to get caught up with what he's been doing over the last few weeks. Keegan Kohler at Catholic Central.
Keegan Kohler's got 2 big games coming up.
Yes.
He's got the Boys Bowl and then possibly the Prep Bowl after that.
And there could be somebody that we haven't even really talked about yet, because there's a lot of guys who are having amazing seasons that maybe even on our watch list that could just jump right into the top 10 because of the way they played the last few weeks. So that's what's happening with Mr. Football. So congratulations to Austin Brown number one, and the Madison Heights Madison contingent out there that's really rooting hard for him.
And to quote DJ Khaled, all this kid does is win, 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 win. I mean, that's it's like over 40 wins on his career. I think he's over 6,000 yards passing. He's the total package.
And again, that's gonna, if he ends up the online vote challenge, it's really going to help him because we talked about the fact of a level of competition. That's gonna even that right out. And again, there's going to be some good teams that they face in the Division VI playoffs. There always are. Some schools from around the state that are going to come in undefeated with a lot of playoff points. So he's going to have this opportunity to win this thing. I think
he literally only has like 3 losses in his whole career.
Yeah, and that should.
You have that many wins. I mean,
yeah. No, I know.
But I mean that influences.
Don't quote me on that number, but it's a very low number.
That influences the selection committee. We could say that. You know what I mean? To be a winner is what this award is about.
Because he wasn't under center with his sophomore year when Catholic Central went to the state finals and lost. He wasn't the starter. Well, he was the starter, but he got hurt in the semifinals.
So that's what's going on with the Hungry Howie's Mr. Football race. Go to our website, statechampsnetwork.com. Vote now. Again, we'll have Steve Walker onto that page and load up, ready to take votes coming up in the next couple of days. So by Thursday, you'll have him up there. If you're looking for him now and you're wondering why you can't vote for him right now, by Thursday, we will have him up, hopefully sooner. So here's what's going on with the Anvil Award. So really the Anvil Award, the way it is broken down, again, because as tough as it is to weigh stats unless they're playing offense, like Marcel Lewis is for Chippewa Valley and making big plays.
Touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly. This is our top 10. Most likely, unless somebody suffers some catastrophic injury, somebody from our watch list will work their way into the thing. And that also could include, we talked about Marvin Grant, maybe even if he has an opportunity and if somebody does fall out, who goes in, we can discuss that when that happens. But our list is at our website. Justin Rogers, Logan Brown, Devontae Dobbs, Anthony Bradford, Lance Dixon, Carson Barnhart, Michael Fletcher, Rook Horhoro, Adam Berghurst, Marcel Lewis.
And all 10 of these guys are blue chips.
Yeah. Blue chips.
These guys have major power conference interests or are committed to power conference schools.
4 of our watch list are blue
yes,
chips too.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
It's just amazing the depth of.
It's unbelievable.
On the line right now, we're just getting a rash of super studs in the trenches.
Right, and we talked about DeJuan Mathis in Oak Park. Justin Rogers isn't going anywhere off this list right out of the way that he has performed this year. Actually, our only junior on the list. The rest are all seniors. But again, some of these teams, Zeeland East has got a big one coming up this week. We're going to talk about a little bit later against Zeeland West.
All these kids are either going to the Big Ten or the SEC.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's insane. It's awesome.
That tells you all you need to know.
And it's so great. And this is the award here. We talked about earlier, the Anvil Award. This is a smaller version of what will eventually be given out. But again, this is something I think we're so kind of thrilled to do, even though we can't, break down as much individual performances because these are our linemen for the most part. The great thing is, we can say later on when Adam Berghorst or Logan Brown is getting drafted into the NFL, that, hey, he was a State Champs Anvil Award winner or finalist or, competitor because
they're making noise at the next level,
and
in
they
a couple
will.
A couple years from now on Saturday.
Absolutely, they will be. And for some of these, it will be next year on Saturday. That's how good they are.
Look at Ladarius Jefferson, our Mr. Football last year.
Yep.
True freshman at Michigan State getting carries.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Some of the upside on some of these guys is so high, and it's going to be very, very fun. If you're curious as to what's happening with the vote, well, Lance Dixon right now, the fine linebacker out of West Bloomfield, is right now leading the vote.
The All-American.
All-American, that's right. 5,451 votes for Lance. Again, talked about big games. They've got some big games coming up, no doubt about it.
They're running the gauntlet at the end of the year.
And again, that's going to really help him when we come down to choosing our Final Four and eventually our champion of the games that these guys, West Bloomfield, if they run the table, they're going to run through a gauntlet of great teams.
And I've heard that I haven't seen them the last couple of weeks, but I heard that Dixon's getting some snaps on offense now.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Right.
4-3, 6-2, runs a 4-3.
I had some catches, I believe.
Yeah.
Not this past week.
I think he had a touchdown against Adams 2 weeks ago.
So anyway, that's so good on him and the West Bloomfield community coming out for him. Rook or Horhoro is second with almost 3,000 votes. Again, this is at Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And then everybody kind of else just kind of falls to the pack. Justin Rogers kind of a distant third right now. Everybody else just, with, several hundred or less than that votes. But again, if you win the online vote, you're automatically in that Final Four. And this is going to be a tough Final Four for us to choose because, I'm envisioning Oak Park, East Kentwood, Belleville, Muskegon, West Bloomfield, maybe Flint, Carman, Ainsworth, definitely River Rouge, very likely Zeeland East, and definitely Chippewa Valley to make deep runs in the playoffs. These are all teams. I mean, these are all players on good teams, so they are going to be having lots of big game performances, and their level of competition, especially for like Logan Brown, my goodness, who they played this season, that's high. Yeah. So, this is kind of where it is. Belleville normally would not even be in that level of competition ranking, but because they're now in the KLAA, they've helped their case.
They're going to be hanging sacks and pancake blocks well into November.
Yes. All right, we're going to take a commercial break. When we come out, Alan True will join us for the Michigan Student Aid Recruit Report, and then we're going to come back and talk about the top games for Week 8 of the football season and make our predictions. So we still got a long way to go. We're kind of only a little over halfway done, so hope you're enjoying it. Again, you can reach out to us on our contact page or on Twitter, on Facebook. Again, the podcast now down to once a week, and we'll be back for the rest of it right after this.
I want to be a dermatologist, and though a lot of universities tried to recruit me for basketball, Lawrence Tech had the science curriculum that I wanted. LTU's Southfield campus is a great place to learn, and the classes are small enough that I don't have to wait for office hours to talk to my professors. They're usually right by my side, challenging me and guiding me toward a successful future. Lawrence Tech. Possible is everything.
Fundraising should be fresh, flavorful, and simple. We have the perfect solution at Hungry Howie's, Dough Raiser. Your team or school can sell paper pizza certificates that can be redeemed for one medium pizza at participating locations.
Hungry Howie's makes it easy. It's just a little mini pizza box, but we make lots of money, lots of dough.
Go to doughraiser.com to learn more and sign up. Your next fundraiser comes with flavored crust. Welcome to Hungry Howie's Dough Raiser.
Today we're going to introduce you to the MHSAA's Coaches Advancement Program. 30 years ago, the MHSAA began its first coaches education program to address the large influx of non-faculty coaches directing educational athletic teams. Today, the Coaches Advancement Program, or CAP, has grown into one of the nation's top and first face-to-face educational program geared to assist coaches in their growth and development. CAP gives coaches everything except the X's and O's of their sport, dealing with the practical and philosophical issues of coaching high school sports. Over 3,000 individuals annually attend CAP training sessions, most receiving beginning and intermediate certifications studying numerous topics. But a growing number stay in the program to earn advanced certification and study not just the basics, but current issues affecting educational athletics. If you want to learn more about the Coaches Advancement Program, visit the MHSAA website.
All right, welcome back to the State Champs Michigan High School Football Extra Point and Prediction Podcast. We're now down to one podcast a week. We're not doing two, like we said, but of course we're going to have Alan True on this show. You know we wouldn't leave you guys hanging on that. Michigan Student Aid Recruit Report is right now. Alan is here. What's up, Alan? How you doing?
Hey, doing great, guys. Can't believe we're moving towards the playoffs here. It's crazy.
It is crazy, and I'm sure more than anything, this is when the time is nuts.
We're crowning champions, whether they be league titles,
yes.
and then in a couple weeks we'll be crowning district champions.
Yes.
The next thing you know, we're at Thanksgiving giving out state championships.
And kids right now are going to all kinds of colleges on Saturdays, on sidelines, taking recruiting trips and all of that. Some are committing. Some are thinking about maybe switching allegiances. But let's talk about four guys that you have identified as making news in the world of recruiting. David Ellis out of Chippewa Valley. We're going to have the Chip Valley Romeo game on State Champs this week. What's up with him?
Well, first, he's a fantastic player. I don't know that he gets the attention that he deserves around the state. Saw him in 7-on-7. This is when they were going against West Bloomfield and Belleville, and so there were a bunch of top recruits on the field, and he was right there with any of them, I thought. So Marcel Lewis gets a lot of attention, and rightly so, but David does a lot for that team. Returns kicks, can play running back, can play receiver, plays safety, does a little bit of everything. So he's committed to Central Michigan. Indiana has not left him alone. They've come really, really hard after him during the season. I think there's a pretty good chance he ends up a Hoosier before it's all said and done. He visited them last week. He's not officially declared anything yet. I think he's still figuring it out, but the Hoosiers are not going away in that one. And I still think there's an outside possibility that a school like Michigan State may come in on him. They were looking very hard at him at one point. Obviously, Marcel's committed there. So, but I would look for him. That's going to be one that the Chippewas have to fight to hang on to. Let's just put it that way.
Being a Hoosier, I would embrace David Ellis coming into the Hoosier family.
Yes.
You know,
being a Chippewa, I would not.
Right. He would be leaving Matt's school and coming to my school.
So,
I got you. Yeah, well, you went out on that one. He's a great player.
So, Jace Williams is another. We kind of alluded to him earlier in the podcast, the fine wide receiver out of Grand Rapids Catholic Central. What's up with him?
Yeah, that's one where I want to mention him to get ahead of it a little bit. He's just starting to get more attention. Good basketball player, very good basketball player, but football might be where his upside's higher. Maybe you compare him a little bit to a Grand Rapids guy and Drake Harris in that regard, where good basketball player, but maybe higher potential on the football field. 6'3", probably around 180 or so right now, and has really gone up and made some plays this year with that athleticism. I know he just visited Northwestern recently, and I think the other Big Ten schools are going to start turning up the heat on him. But maybe not a guy that's well known outside of West Michigan yet, but that's going to change. I would expect a big offseason out of him as far as recruiting goes.
Well, Luke Elzinga is a guy out of Grand Rapids Christian that is making waves, one of the top 10 punters in the United States.
He's got a huge, I just saw Christian play last week, and he was booting them, and he showed the ability to coffin corner it a little bit as well. I think he had an almost 70-yard punt a couple weeks ago. Jeez. And Don Fellows, the head coach at Christian, he's coached at the college level, and he said Luke is as good or better than almost all of the guys he had at the college level. Michigan and Michigan State have both had him up on visits. Things tend to happen a little bit later for specialists, unless you're a Quinn Nordine type of guy. But I would expect Luke to end up at a high-level Division I school here before the end of the season. There's not many punters like him in the Midwest.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
How does he compare to Ovid Elsie's Evan Morris, who just committed to Michigan State, who is also being lauded as one of the top legs in the country?
I think he's more of a combo guy where he can punt, he can place kick, he might be a kickoff guy. I think Luke is strictly a punter.
Wow.
And as far as I haven't seen the kid from Ovid kick yet. Yeah, I haven't looked at the numbers or anything like that, so I don't know exactly as far as leg strength who's got the bigger leg. I just know Luke can boot it, but he is strictly a punter. Where I think that kid is a combo.
Well, Morris is also known as the number one kickoff specialist in the country for the class of 2019. He kicks the ball 70, 80 yards on kickoffs.
And when you look at guys that have come out of the state and walked on and just as kickoff specialists, Jake Moody kicks off for Michigan right now, even though Quinn's there. So that maybe that's what his role is going to end up being at the next level, is just a kickoff guy.
I would imagine that Luke will probably play two roles in college. His other role will probably be holder. Right. That's usually what the
It's important. It's pretty important.
He's like 6'4", almost 200 pounds. So I imagine if you got to make the fire call, there's a bad snap or something, he might be a tough guy to bring down. So,
there you go.
Yeah, so is Evan Morris. He's like 6'6".
Now, how many punters strictly punters get scholarships?
It almost kind of depends on the year. Within the Midwest, which is what I cover, you rarely see more than 5 get put on scholarship. A lot of them walk on at first and then end up getting put on scholarship later.
Well, I mean, again, you can say what you want. It's so valuable. If you've got a guy that can get a team far, to start at their own 5 or their 10, and field position is everything in college football, especially.
His Luke's coach, I believe, Fellows. I believe he's an Oakland County guy. I think he was a quarterback for one of the Waterford schools in the early '90s, late '80s.
You're dating me on that one, Scott. I can't.
I love it. I love it.
My knowledge base doesn't quite go back that far.
Gotcha.
I hadn't heard that name in 20, 30 years, and you just said it, and it rang a bell.
All right, so Alan Truce here for our Michigan Student Aid Recruit Report. We want to finish up with Gibraltar Carlson's Ian Stewart, really an athlete, can play a number of positions. What's going on with him?
Well, he's a kid who just in the last, it's funny, the summer was only 4 months ago. So in the last 4 months, he's gone from having a good handful of offers to Michigan, Michigan State, and Ohio State all have offered him scholarships. So things have really increased for him. You mentioned the athleticism. He plays quarterback this year for them, which the last guy that played quarterback there was Jalen Franklin, who went off to Wisconsin as an athlete. That's probably what Ian's going to do. He's played receiver when Jalen was the quarterback, so catching passes is definitely something he could do. He played linebacker, and even catching passes. He could be a wide receiver. Some schools may prefer him as a flex kind of half tight end, half receiver, even a backfield kind of guy. But he's definitely a high-level player. He's going to Penn State this weekend. It would not surprise me to see them become the next offer in the race. Seemed like that one was heading Michigan's way a little bit, and then all of a sudden Ohio State, those pesky Buckeyes, came up here and extended an offer. Penn State's going to offer. It's going to make things interesting. And then Wisconsin has not offered yet, but with Jalen on the team up there and all the connections Wisconsin has made into the state recently. Downriver, they got Michael Furtney out of Milan as well. I could see them being a team that factors in if they were going to extend an offer his way.
You know, I'm not a big fan of those walls, but I certainly would have no problem with a nice wall just being built between Michigan and Ohio, so Ohio State University cannot pluck our great talent from the state. I don't care where they go. I just don't want them going there.
Well, there were all those years where Ohio State just ignored Michigan recruiting-wise.
That is true.
And then Urban Meyer came in and said, no more.
Well, not only that, then we went down there and played a couple of all-star games and beat them both times. Then they said, no, we don't want to play your all-stars anymore.
Well, you know what? I think they almost recruited Michigan at the start just to sort of poke at Michigan and say, we're going to make you work. We're going to make Michigan State work. And then some of those guys turned out to be really good players. And that's when you started to see them pick it up more in Michigan, is when some of those guys turned out. And you see it now with Mikey Weber down there, Damon Webb before him. Usually when Michigan kids have gone down there, those guys, Michael Jordan. So usually those guys have been successful once they go down there.
Yeah, no question.
And then there were decades where Ohio State was ignoring Michigan as fertile recruiting ground, but Michigan and Michigan State were like making a living bringing kids from Ohio into East Lansing and Ann Arbor and seeing them shine. Desmond Howard, Elvis Gerback, Charles Woodson,
Chris Spielman.
Right.
So many. All right, Alan, thank you so much. We appreciate it very much, and we will talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys, as always.
Right. So again, thanks, Alan. Let's move on and wrap up this coming up next will be our Week 8 playoff preview and predictions. That's coming up next. But let's wrap it up. Matt Mowry, you've got your updated rankings going on, which should be going up on the website here soon if they aren't already.
They're up.
Okay, they're up. So what movement did we have this week?
A lot.
A lot.
There have been several weeks where there's been one or two teams moving. This week there were 5, I think. We had Clarkston drop from 5 to 11. West Bloomfield dropped from 10 to 15. Farmington Hills Harrison dropped from 14 to 20. And Catholic Central dropped from 8 to 14. And like the entirety of all the Oakland County contingent just kind of slid down a block. And then, of course, conversely, we have teams that kind of started trickling up behind them. And then we had another one, Lapeer, that had a scare against Flint Carman Ainsworth, needed a last-second field goal to pull out a 31-28 win, I guess. Against Carman Ainsworth. And then West Ottawa took another loss in the OK Red, dropped out in Davison. It's a tough one, and I debated about that one because I could have dropped them down to 25 and left them in, but that's kind of that 5-spot drop has been pretty consistent with everybody throughout the season. If you lose, you drop 5 to 6 spots, and keeping them in, I could make an argument. Dropping them out, I could make an argument. That's a tough loss, but they lost pretty handily to Warren De La Salle. So we had a couple of new teams pop in Jackson. That's been just an absolutely great story all season long.
Yep.
They continued that. They beat Tecumseh 57-14 to win their first conference title since the 1940s. And that's a weird league right now, just from a standings perspective, because not only are they conference champions, but Dexter, fresh off snapping its 42-game losing streak in Week 2, is tied for second. So that's a team. That's a division where it's just kind of like this is all new, to them. And there's Grosse Pointe South, which really has been kind of, I think, a little overlooked throughout the season. We talked about them early in the season when they had kind of a showdown with Warren Mott.
And they
won that resoundingly.
Yeah, and they've got the big game with North this week, which which you talk about 4,000 people. But again, North is having such a rough season. It's one that we just can kind of put up.
That was kind of foreshadowed by what happened in the offseason too with Frank.
Right. Yep. Yes, exactly.
Grosse Pointe South is 7-0 for the first time since 1984. So coming off the back of their winning the baseball title in the spring, they just kind of slid that.
That's right.
There are some kids on those teams that play both. They haven't lost in quite a while. So it's a good feeling on that campus.
Well, it'd be something if North wins that game. That would be something this week.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I wouldn't predict that. But
it is high school. But yeah. So that's good. I do have a question for you, and people have asked me this on the road too. Because again, I don't envy your position. It's very, very tough to do. But at the top, having Muskegon be number 2 and Cass Tech be number 1. If you look at, if people will say, well, you look at who Muskegon has played and who they beat when you talk about De La Salle and King and, why the rationale on why Muskegon is 2 and Cass 1?
Well, I think part of it starts because that's the way they started out, and neither of them have lost. So there really hasn't been any reason to. And really, with Cass Tech, the only time that they've even really been challenged has been the one game in Ohio when they had to, win on kind of a Hail Mary. But that was against a very, very good team.
Right.
So there really hasn't been any impetus to move them out of now. Could I do co-number 1s? Absolutely, because Muskegon is certainly deserving of being in that spot too. And it's kind of like, if I move Muskegon up, Cass Tech people are going to go, hey, we haven't lost. And
right.
So I understand the argument from the people at Muskegon because they've proven throughout the season that they are one of the top 2 teams in the state.
Yeah.
And so has Cass Tech, really. So
absolutely.
So it's one where it's kind of like there's a no-win situation in there.
Mumford's not a joke.
No.
And they beat them 41-7, and I'm sure they called all the dogs off after the second quarter, and everybody just sat on the bench. PSL playoffs are going now, so they've got Renaissance first. It will be interesting to see. They're not going to play at Ford Field, the finals this year. So, I think it was an issue maybe of money.
Where are they playing?
They're going to play it at. They're going to play at
Renaissance.
At Renaissance, Renaissance is where the
semifinals are at Northwestern. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Semifinals at Northwestern, and the championship game will be at Renaissance, which is kind of fun because it will be packed for Cass and King. So, but yeah, again, just throwing out there. Look, Grand Rapids Union, is another team. It's just not very good. So they won 70-6. But they've got Mona Shores this week. Let's see how that thing shakes out. Again, those are Matt Mowry's rankings. You can go to our website, statechampsnetwork.com, click on the news button, and you can see his capsules, his kind of updates on all the teams and where he is. Again, picking a top 25 is a hard thing to do, and we're talking about the entire country. We're not ranking this by division. Some regional papers are lucky because they've got their area, so they'll have their area top 10. Well, we're trying to do it through the whole state, and again, small schools seem to always feel like Pewaukee, Westphalia is still on the outside looking in, and they're a dominant program, but they're D7 and
Swan Valley, Grand Rapids Catholic Central, all of those that I have in the other 10s to watch are usually those smaller schools who probably have dominated their division and their level, but it's kind of hard sometimes to rationalize putting them in the top 25 over maybe a Class A team that's
and look, Davison has one loss and they're out of the top 25. Yeah. I mean, again,
it was tough.
It is. That's how tough it is. But again, I agree with you. Jackson and Grosse Pointe South are deserving of being in this top 25. So that is where we are at with that. All right, we're going to take our final timeout. When we come back, we talk about Week 8. We're going to tell you about the games you'll be able to see on State Champs, as well as some other games of interest around the state, and we'll make our volunteer predictions. We'll see how Bernstein does this week.
I can't get much worse.
All right, so that's all coming up as we wrap up the podcast. Thanks. Stay with us.
My passion is architecture. I don't want to sit around passively studying. I need to create. In our architecture studios at Lawrence Tech, we collaborate with students, faculty, and professionals from around the world. And from day one, we design using the same industry standard software that architecture firms use. I really feel like I'm designing my own future here. Lawrence Tech. Possible is everything.
I ordered 2 large Howie Mauis with butter cheese crust.
Wow, you are one serious breast cancer awareness supporter.
Warrior for love, hope, and pizza. Can't seem to reach my wallet.
Flavor fanatics love us because for every pizza sold in October, a portion goes to the National Breast Cancer Foundation. Now get a medium one-topping pizza for $1 when you buy a large one-topping pizza at regular menu price.
Hungry?
Howie's!
All right, guys, welcome back. This is our final segment of the first State Champs Michigan High School Football Extra Point and Prediction Podcast. Again, down to 1. So, Extra Point, I know you guys were used to getting it on Monday at 5. It's now Tuesday at 5, the football forecast. You don't have to wait till Thursday at 3. You get it right now, and that's what we're going to talk about are the games that are on State Champs TV this week, which is Sunday, October 14th at 9 a.m. on Fox Sports Detroit. These are the games you'll be able to see on television, and then, of course, there will be a bunch of other games that we want to talk about that are happening that are big this week, taking place. A week 8 of the high school football season, which is crazy that we're already here, but we're here, and it's, it's like 80 degrees outside, so it doesn't feel like fall, but we are here. Let's talk about a team that we talked about right off the bat in the top, and then that is Romeo and Mount Clemens Chippewa Valley.
We're talking about a gauntlet. Romeo goes from
exactly.
Dakota to Chippewa Valley.
Yeah, now Romeo's hosting this game, so this will be in Romeo, so it'll be in their backyard. They're 5-2, 3-1 in the MAC Red. Chip Valley 7-0, 4-0 in the MAC Red, so this is a big contest. And before we do that, and we kind of talk about this, Scott Merchant has been a friend of State Champs for a long time. He's the head coach at Chippewa Valley, and we want to mention and send out our deepest condolences and sympathies to Tyler Wells. Tyler Wells is a linebacker for Chippewa Valley. He is number 59, and he is going through a hard time right now. He just lost his mother, who passed away. His father had passed away not that long ago. He's got an older brother, but it's basically just those two guys. So the Chip Valley community is coming together, and they are going to have a kind of a what you would call a fundraiser, something that they can do for the family, and we want to do whatever we can to raise awareness for this and hopefully get more proceeds going to the Wells family. And this is also because a lot of times when you have tragedies like this, is people will say, how can I help? How can I help? I'm telling you how you can help right now. There is a spaghetti dinner that's going to be taking place on Tuesday, October 16th, so a week from today. It's going to be from 6 to 8 p.m. $5 per child or student if you're 18 and under. It's $10 for an adult, $25 for a family. It's going to take place at the New Life Ambassador for Christ Christian Church, which is on Utica Road in Fraser, Michigan. So just look it up. Kim Wells was his mom. She was huge in Tyler's life, as a lot of our mothers are. But again, after losing her husband and his father, then it becomes even more so, and now Tyler loses his mother. So we want to send as much we can, and as much as we can do to help promote this event, and maybe have some campaign or some donations made in the Wells family's honor, really help them out. You can do that. And so we're going to put this event on social media, and we're going to get it out there. It's already out there right now. Again, what we're talking about here, we can kind of put out in video format for you to go out and support the Chip Valley and the Wells family. So just something we wanted to do to help that young man, and best of luck to him. And right now, Chip Valley is Big Reds are his family, and they're going to really help him. And they've got a big game to play, so if they didn't need any more excuse to have a bigger rallying cry, to go on the road at Romeo and win is tough to do.
I believe last week's game clinched a share of their first MAC Red title since 2002. Please correct me if I looked that up wrong.
First year of state champs.
Yep. And they can win it outright this next week if they beat Romeo. Romeo, obviously, if they go in, could kind of forge a three-way tie with Dakota,
living up to the expectations. Everyone kind of predicted that this was going to be Chip's year. They had a ton returning, a lot of playmakers, a lot of leaders, and they're doing the job. And the ceiling for this team is Ford Field. I mean, they have a legitimate chance at playing on Thanksgiving. So.
Especially David Ellis keeps returning kicks like he seemingly does every single.
Everyone talks about Deron McKinney as the best return guy in the state, but David Ellis is like, not so quick. Look over here in Macomb County. I can take it to the house with the best of them.
Fast too, yes.
And he's going to Central Michigan. Deron's going to Northern Illinois.
There you go. All right, so we will have that game on State Champs, so make sure you check that out. That's going to lead the show, so that'll be the first game right out of the back. Swartz Creek and Fenton are getting together. We talked a little bit about both these teams.
Great story over at Swartz Creek.
It is. 6-1, 6-0 in the Metro
and
Division.
They've only made the playoffs one time in school history until last Friday when they clinched the second appearance in the history of that program. So I know Thomas Marshall, their running back, is running wild, and just that must be a real special time in that community right now.
Well, I think throughout the first couple of weeks of the season, when they would beat somebody, we all just kind of went, huh.
Right.
And just kind of wondered how long it would last. Well, it's lasted, and as we talked about earlier, there's this next couple of weeks where they've really got to, put the nail in the coffin and solidify that conference championship now that they're already in the playoffs. But yeah, this is one of those where this has kind of been building throughout the season, and now they really get their test and their chance to put a true stamp on this season.
And that Flint Metro area, the area itself, it's so strong this year in football. So many great teams. Davidson's going to bounce back. It's going to be very few teams who beat De La Salle during the year. Maybe Muskegon will be the only team. So Carmen Ainsworth, another great team.
Beecher named Ernest Sanders. Yeah. I think he had 5 touchdowns last week, and he's one of these kids that has Division I offers as both a football player, as a wide receiver, and as a basketball player, as like a 6'3", 6'4" shooting guard wing. So that's
Amity's still unbeaten. Lothrop, kind of in that area, still unbeaten.
And Fenton saying, "Don't count us out yet." You know what I mean? A big win. That'd be a big win if they can get that. And speaking of a big win, if somehow Muskegon Mona Shores can remain undefeated and knock off the undefeated Muskegon Big Reds, I would be surprised. But again, and especially when you look at how Jenison almost came back to beat them. But sometimes, and we know this, you look ahead.
Yeah.
You don't consider the opponent you got in front of you. You're already thinking about Muskegon.
Well,
right?
It certainly, and it didn't help that Sincere Dent missed a lot of the game with an ankle, and if you're really trying to control the clock and keep the other team off the field, then your horse of a running back is not in the game. It's harder to do. But yeah, this is legitimately one of those, and it seems like every time we mention, this is a game of the year potential kind of matchup, Muskegon's on one half of it, and they've been in several of those.
Yes,
and they've more than held their own.
Yes, they have.
But yeah, this is just going to be a colossal matchup between these two, and I think everybody knew that Muskegon was going to be exceptional this year. I think everybody thought Mona Shores has been one of those programs where they're never really down, but when it really opened some eyes when they thrashed East Kentwood, a very, very good East Kentwood team that hasn't lost since in week 1. I think that was kind of when we all went, ooh, with this Mona Shores team.
For
and
sure.
They certainly have. They've had a couple of close calls, but certainly they have never, folded at any point in time. And this was one of those where they just kind of had to hold the fort and get past this week and kind of, stave off a Jenison team that we mentioned earlier is having a year for them that they haven't had in a long time.
Yeah.
And now you set up the mega matchup with Muskegon.
Yeah, and again, we've got 2 Mr. Football candidates playing in this game, being Sincere Dent and Cameron Martinez, and we have a Anvil Award top 10 guy in was that Logan? Anthony Bradford, for Muskegon. So
going to LSU.
Yep, exactly. So again, it's always a great game with these two anyway. You gotta hope that Sincere is healthy.
Yeah.
Coming into this one
near the end of the game.
Okay.
I think that's what I saw, but you never know if that stiffens up throughout the week too.
Mona Shores is going to need everything, all they got to handle this one, especially the fact they are at Muskegon.
Let me just take a second to first little self-promotion.
Go
to my State Champs Bernie's Bites blogs at statechampsnetwork.com. I just did something on we've talked about the depth at offensive line, and there's obviously the blue chippers, but there are kind of some lesser known guys that are guys that are Division I prospects. That aren't committed, that are very, very talented, and one of them's at Muskegon right now, Marquise Cooper. And I'm scratching my head. I'm going to ask Alan at some point to kind of illuminate this train for me. But this guy is 6'4", 325, plays alongside Anthony Bradford, and I don't think he has any offers. So I don't know exactly what the deal is. Maybe there's a grade issue that I'm unaware of, but. When you have 2 300-pounders on your line like that, it makes life for Cam Martinez quite nice.
Absolutely.
So look for Cooper on that line alongside Bradford, the SEC recruit.
Time out, just so you know. Don't ask him today when we talk to him because it'll be weird. And then you're like, I'm going to ask him about that.
Oh, yeah, because we're all out of...
So ask him next week. So just forget you said that. Yeah. You can remember. No. It's fine. Just don't ask Alan when we have him on because it'll seem weird. You can ask him next week.
Okay.
That's all.
But is it district? So will people be seeing this before?
No, they're going to see this after Alan.
Oh, okay,
that's why.
Sense. All right.
That's why.
Okay.
Yeah, if they were seeing this before, it'd be different. So, no, I like doing this. I like putting this last so people don't just tune out Alan if they're not interested in that. So, okay, so let's move on. Well, the Battle of Zeeland takes place each and every year, and there really is no at or versus because they play in the same stadium. But there is technically a home team and a visiting team. Maybe it just means a uniform change, or whatever. Switch sidelines, So, again, in the OK Green, you got 2 6-1 teams, 2 4-0 teams in their conference, East and West, both out of Zeeland, getting together. And this is great because West has been so good. Zeeland East now is a team definitely to be reckoned with.
With a lot of again, I kind of always fall back on the college recruiting thing, but East has some studs, Adam Berghorst and the Benenema brothers, Boone Benenema, and a guy I really like, Josh Fusco.
And I think Gabe Taylor, their quarterback, just got his first offer this week, I believe. And he's been really lighting it up for them, kind of, leading that whole offense between he and Fusco. They've kind of.
And I think the baby Benenema just got an offer.
Yeah, I think he was at Michigan, wasn't
he? Yeah. Well, he's a freshman. He's starting with his brother on that linebacking core, and Fusco's doing it on both sides of the ball, whether at safety or at running back as well.
And Zeeland East has had some close calls throughout the season. They've had to have some comebacks. They've had to have, and this was another one where they had to score a couple of touchdowns last week to beat
Byron
Center. And it was, but they have been kind of building toward this game, and when the Chicks and Ducks get together.
That's it, Chicks and Ducks.
Great names.
Both with X. Yep. Chicks and Ducks with X.
This should be one of those great games this week. And the West Side seems like they have 4 or 5 of these games this week alone where you really go, ooh, and it seems to be all in those OK conferences where the everything's coming to a head.
Yep, absolutely. There's just so much. Zeeland East only lost to Grand Rapids Catholic Central, 17-13. No shame in that. West lost to Grand Rapids Christian, 41-26. So they got beat pretty good in that one. But again, Grand Rapids Christian is a team that's 5-2, and their only losses are to DeWitt and South Christian, which again are not. We know what DeWitt's been doing. They've been amazing this season. Absolutely. So both these teams kind of, a lot of parity probably. Yep. And again, you're going to throw the records out the window anyway because these are teams that basically share kind of the same campus. It's very similar to a Plymouth Canton kind of thing, Salem kind of thing. So this is going to decide the OK Green, and it's going to be a great battle. And you're going to be able to, after this, know that one of those teams is set up well for the playoffs. And again, who knows? They might play each other again. I don't know.
Both of them are in, so
yeah, and they're both in. So anyway, it's interesting game, and that's one that we definitely wanted to see how that one turns out. So what is another matchup that, and again, you'll be able to see that on State Champs. I wanted to mention that is one of our games. Clinton and Ottawa Lake Whiteford getting together. Clinton 6-1, 5-0 in the Tri-County Conference. Two teams that are undefeated in the Tri-County. Ottawa Lake Whiteford has been
they're just thrashing
yes,
opponents
and quietly again is a team. They're basically a stone's throw from the Ohio border. Right outside of Cabela's, basically. And the what's really cool is the stadium's kind of built into the forest, and they've got kind of a walk of fame that's you're out. It's outdoors, and they've got the players' picture, and so all the fans walk up and go through all these pictures of the players. It's very cool what they've done at Whiteford, and some of the fans have been reaching out to us about getting some coverage and really kind of talking about how good this team is. This is a good matchup.
Well, and this is a team that sometimes, quite honestly, when you're looking through the season, go, oh, maybe we should cover this game, maybe we should go cover that game. They've been killing people all year long, so there hasn't really been a matchup where we went, oh, we got to go see that one because, they've outscored.
You don't want to show anybody getting
stomped
on TV.
369 to 47, they've outscored teams, and I believe they've given up.
Throttling the competition.
Absolutely, they've given up.
It's insane.
Yeah, 41 points in the conference.
And Clinton's no slouch. They had a 30-point second quarter last week.
Yep. Right. And if you look at last year, you talk about points. Ottawa Lake, granted they made a nice long run, 737, which is insane, almost 800 points in total. But they're the state champs, and that's what they are. They've lost, a couple of years ago against a really good Muskegon Catholic Central team, and I did a story on them right before that game, and they were just they were happy to be there, but they really wanted to finish. Last year they went in just on a mission, did not lose a single game. They didn't score less than 36 points in the entire, and that was just one. The rest were all 40s, 50s, 60s, and beat Saginaw Nouveau Catholic pretty handily, 42-21 in the final. So, again, this year, more of the same, giving up less points. Yep. But again, you'll give up more in the playoffs as you get there. But I would say this again. You talk about what are the games that you can cover. Well, the Clinton This is the one, and the Clinton Redskins are no joke. And granted, they're not putting up the points quite like they are, but they have common opponents, and they beat them just as Ottawa is. Granted, not as handily, but they've won.
47-4 is what Whiteford is over the last 4 seasons. I mean, that's just clinical, and they've kind of gotten to. They've been in the playoffs. It's been quite a long streak where they've had, I think, only missed playoffs 4 times in the last 15 or so years. But this has been a program that's really been kind of building toward this point, and now they're almost dominant on this level at this point in D8.
Now, will they be able to be dominant against Ottawa Lake Whiteford? We'll see. We have predictions coming up.
I was talking about,
Yes, exactly. Right. Riverview and Grosse Ile are getting together. This one at Grosse Ile. 6-1 is Riverview in this one. Grosse Ile 7-0, 7-0 in the Huron League. Riverview 6-1 in the Huron League. So this is another league title.
I know Grosse Ile is the undefeated team in this matchup, but Riverview has a punishing rushing attack. They ran for 600 yards last week.
Yeah,
600 yards.
Yeah,
and I think they had 3 kids over 100. So they have a dearth of playmaking ability in that backfield and plethora.
A veritable plethora.
Oh, sorry.
Dearth means you have none.
Okay, a plethora.
Lesson for the day. Thank you.
I don't know why. Yes,
it's okay. You like to have.
I like to improving my vocabulary.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, the Huron League is one of those teams we don't talk about a whole lot. It's usually a Monroe St. Mary Catholic team that is usually dominant. Milan certainly has had some great teams as of late, and even Flat Rock last year was really surprising a lot of people, and they were really good. Grosse Ile is there, and they're a team that is kind of I would say a surprise for sure, considering that last season they only won 2 games. So they're in the mix here. Riverview is a team that, for those of you that don't remember, had a really great season last season. They went to the semifinals. Now they got beat 21-0 by Harrison, so that's not anything to shake a stick at. Harrison went to the state finals, but this should be a really fun matchup. And again, Grosse Ile gets it at home. that's a game you'll be able to see on State Champs on Sunday. The game that I will be filming is Farmington at Birmingham Seaholm, the battle for the OAA Blue
title.
Yes, absolutely. So both teams 6-1, and this should be an interesting matchup. And again, Seaholm gets it in their bowl, or whatever you want to call it. It's kind of a lower
Another matchup of two really strong rushing attacks. Farmington has Kendall Williams, one of the more underrated tailback stars in Metro Detroit. Ran for over 1,000 last year. I think he's running for over 1,000 this year. And then Seaholm's got that thunder and lightning, Max Shoemaker and Chase Mentag, and a quarterback in Greg Kinney that can also run it. They don't do a lot of passing, and but Farmington's got a defense that I really like. Donovan King on the defensive line is a kid that's kind of one of these late bloomers in the recruiting world. All of a sudden, people are kind of taking notice of him. And then they got a junior linebacker, Jordan Turner, that by the time we're talking about him next year, he could easily be in the race for some of our awards. This is a kid that I think already has like 10 offers, and it's just really getting started. He's fast, he's strong, he's tall, he's like 6'3", 220, and he plays on the outside linebacker spot.
Yeah, I think they've only given up more than 21 points in a game just once to Madison, and both of these teams are 6-1, but have obviously no slouch losses. Farmington's is to an undefeated Madison team, and Seaholm's is to an undefeated South Lyon team
on the road in overtime on a game-winning field goal.
Or it was? I don't think it was in overtime. I think it was last play of the game. Yep.
So it should be interesting. This will be a good matchup. Those are the games that you can see on State Champs. And again, we usually put those out on Friday night, so you can catch them on social media on Saturday. You don't need to wait till Sunday to see the highlights. We'll have those up. We've got about 10 minutes here to go over the rest of the games that we have of interest around the state. And Matt always gives me a list of a whole talk about a plethora. We get a lot of them,
but not a dearth.
Yes, no. But there are a lot of games of interest that are going on. We'll just kind of quickly touch on these before we get to our predictions. So Walled Lake Western and South Lyon, obviously, this is big for both. For South Lyon, they're in such a comfortable position now. But again, being in the jungle, there's no way they want to have Western come in and shut down any of the momentum that they built.
Again, we're throwing out some cliches and some platitudes, but they control their own destiny.
Yes,
they win that league title, and they got Western in their own crib, and they're going to try to dial up a defense to keep Sam Johnson and that offense at bay. And I feel like there's some tape floating around right now between the Lakeland game and the South Lyon East game, and then the first game of the year to Catholic Central, that maybe some teams are understanding what they have to do to keep Sam in check.
Well, and I talked about that with Sam Johnson after the game. You asked him, because they threw probably 9-10 deep balls that were just fractions of inches, and that's what people have been doing to them, kind of stacking the line, putting everybody in the box, keep taking away the short run, short pass game and the run game, and saying, okay, if you want to go deep, you have to show us that you can complete these. They completed the one they had to really in that game, and part of it was because the position that South Lyon East was in without their starting quarterback, they were probably not going to make a comeback. They almost did make a comeback and ended up stalling out
for the year, Kaminsky?
I do not know. Okay. I do not know. He had two guys fall in his arm in last game against Mott in I think the second half, and so he was walking around in the sling.
South Lyon East quarterback's Chris Kaminsky. He was out last week.
South Lyon East's only offense was a kick return for a touchdown. But yeah, they completed the one big pass that they had to in the fourth quarter and turned that into a touchdown. But that has been, like you said, that tape has been floating around. This is how you do it. You can let them take their shots deep, and if they beat you, they beat you. But they have to prove that they can, and that's what Alex Grignon said. They're going to probably have to do that same thing. And what it does is you feel like you have a shot, and then you realize you're constantly in 3rd and 10s and 3rd and 12s, and all of a sudden, and that's never a healthy feeling. It can kind of be that click click boom thing if you're hitting on some of those deep passes, but they haven't really been hitting on enough of them to keep people from playing them in that fashion.
Yeah, I would say that, as far as the Mr. Football race is concerned, this is big for Sam Johnson. Like you said, South Lyon controls their own destiny. They know they can't take this game lightly. They've played good defense this season. Most teams, scoring around 14 against them. So if Walled Lake Western is going to win this game, I would probably think that they're going to have to score more than 14 points. Yeah. I would imagine.
Like I said, they've only scored 19 the last 2 weeks.
Right.
But I saw them 2 weeks ago against Lakeland when they only scored 7, and it really, I wouldn't put that responsibility for that lack of offensive firepower on Sam. Sam played pretty well against Lakeland. He was really the only one on Western that was playing really well.
And let's not forget, they put 52 up on Waterford Mott when Waterford Mott was really, really good.
Yeah.
And they put up 38 on Walled Lake Northern,
Oh, they've got all the weapons there.
So
it's just getting it all to match.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is the week that maybe it will. We'll see. We'll predict that in a little while. St. Clair Shores, Lakeshore, and Ward Woods Tower are getting together. This will be a Saturday afternoon affair. Again, I want to give all the props to Richie Pop, who's a big friend of state champs, and to have his team, kind of the evolution they've had over the last few years, has been really unbelievable. They're 4-0 in the MAC Gold. Warren Woods Tower, another team that's gritty and is undefeated.
They got Henry Brown, who's a junior running back that is just a special player. He is a guy that has a relentless motor. And I saw him in the preseason talking to some of the guys at that program, and they kind of told me about him and kind of started to see some potential last year as a sophomore. But he is a load, and he has the chance to take it to the house every time he touches the ball.
Right on.
Yeah, that's been a defense at Warren Woods Tower that kind of has carried them throughout the season. Until you got to last week and they had to get into a shootout with Warren Fitzgerald where they, won 56-48, but they've given up 98 points on the season, so half of that came last week.
Yeah, and Henry Brown plays linebacker too, so he plays both ways.
Yeah, and St. Clair Shores, Lake Shores have been putting up a lot of points this season. A team that really good on special teams, really good at getting in great field position.
With Richie there, I mean, you knew the team's going to be able to score points.
Right.
I mean, that's his specialty. He's a quarterback guru.
Absolutely.
This could be another one that's in the the over/under could be 120 on this one.
Yeah, we haven't talked a whole lot about Ithaca this season.
No, we talked about that first game.
I think
where it was unimpressive, but
that was it.
Now they've.
But that was as much PW as it was Ithaca, and it was kind of one of those where PW has been Ithaca has been kind of that small school, golden child, for lack of a better term, just because they've been so dominant over the last handful of
years. Not just in the state of Michigan, doing stuff that no one in the country had been doing.
Yep.
And all props to Terry Hesbrook and his crew up there, but that was PW, I think, coming out and going, "Hi, we would like some of that attention, please."
Well, they made a statement, 38-0,
and they have not ceased since then. But we kind of knew that Ithaca that was not a deal breaker on the season, and it certainly, obviously, it was non-conference. But you figured that it was going to the ship was going to get righted quickly, and now they've kind of run their way through the TVC West.
Their way.
Yes,
they have crushed teams, including a 73-0 win over Saginaw Valley Lutheran.
Yeah, they have demolished their way through, just absolutely killing people.
Yeah. They
used to do in the old CSAA days when I remember with Coach Ahern, and that was. But now this is the one big test at the end of the season, kind of for the conference title before they go into the postseason. And Seminary has been very, very good.
Very good. Very good. Especially the last 3 games, only giving a combined 22 points against St. Louis Valley Lutheran and Hemlock. This is going to be the game to decide that division. And for Saginaw, Michigan Lutheran Seminary, a couple of years ago, if you remember, they went all the way to the semifinals in Division 8. Was really impressive. I remember we were getting a lot of people like, "You got to come see us. You got to come see us." There was a lot of talk because when that Lutheran community, they stick together, and when they've got a team that's making a run, they're all going to come out and really want to support them. So last year kind of fell back a little bit, did not make the playoffs, only had 4 wins, and they lost 42-7 to Ithaca. So they're going to want to come back and show that they are back and ready to go, and will be a very interesting game. All right, just a few more minutes, so let's kind of scroll through these. Reading and Springport.
Reading's another team. We're talking about great rushing.
7-0, both teams.
Talking about great rushing attacks. Reading's got a 3-headed monster back there and putting up a lot of yards in the rushing chart.
Yeah, this is a Big 8 conference matchup, and both teams undefeated coming into this one, which is really interesting. As when you have, it's rare that you get 2 undefeateds this late in the season.
Yeah, in the same conference.
In the same conference, yeah.
Yep.
So we'll predict that one in a little bit. Harbor Beach and Sandusky getting together again. Some small schools getting some love here. My buddy's the athletic director. Yeah. My buddy is the athletic director at Harbor Beach. So they're really happy for what they've been able to do. And again, another program that when these small ones like the Whitefords and those of the world, don't get a whole lot of attention, but just quietly every year, really strong.
Yep.
Really strong, and so that is another matchup we'll see that will be very interesting. Port Huron Northern and Roseville are getting together in the MAC Blue. Port Huron Northern has really had a great season thus far, and a big win last week. And this is just a team we haven't talked about
except for Brady
while.
McGregor,
right? Exactly,
the defensive end who's really starting to become a star in recruiting circles, and all the big boys are coming after him. But that team is obviously a lot more than just Brady McGregor, whether he's playing defensive end or he's catching the ball as a tight end.
Well, they've been doing it with defense. I mean, they've only scored 176 points on the season, but they've only given up 73. So it's been kind of defensive. Gave up, I think, in 16 points in a 3-week span before giving up 14 last week. And,
and
21-14 over Port Huron.
That game is so big for that community. I mean, they all come out for that one, so you knew it was going to be a tight battle. The kids even play, I'm sure, a little tight, in that, because it just means so much to have those bragging rights. And we'll give the Panthers some credit. Roseville has
5-2.
Yeah, 5-2. They beat Fraser last week, 31-7. Was able to beat Lakeview the week before, and a team that really thumped Port Huron 42-19.
Well, and 2 losses to Warren Mott, who obviously no slouch in the MAC White, and Chip Valley.
Yeah.
And, the only loss for Port Huron Northern is Romeo,
that
we talked about earlier.
And again, credit them for scheduling teams like Chip Valley and Mott.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Those are your losses, but you probably learned. I mean, look at that bounce back. I mean, you lose to Chip Valley 42-0. You come back, you beat Cousino, you score 40. You come back, you beat Port Huron, you score 42. You fall to Mott, you give up 42. You only score 7, but you come back, you beat St. Clair Shores Lakeview, and you beat Fraser 28-31 points respectively in both of those. So, you learn, and you want to make a run. Last year they played Port Huron Northern in the first round of the playoffs and lost 13-7. So they had kind of a dogfight last year, and Port Huron Northern was not in the MAC Blue last year. So
they're in the gold,
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
So now they are, and they're going to meet now. Maybe they meet later. Again, it depends on how the whole division things play out. Right now, they're a Division II squad. At least they were last year. I'm assuming that's where they will be.
Well, and just putting together kind of those lists of automatic qualifiers, it's been kind of interesting because we've been getting D1, D2 teams that have popped in, but a lot of those teams are 5-2, 6-1 still because they play. But a lot of teams that were undefeated and moving in right off the bat in D6, D7, D8, D5, all of those have filled up very fast.
Right.
So I think that's why you're seeing some of the upper levels when there's a talk about it, when they start backfilling, with the 5-4 teams, there may not be as many 5-4 teams needed because there are so many in those lower levels.
Yeah.
So that's why we're seeing some of those possibilities of some of those behemoth teams that might be not D2 but D3.
A lot's going to happen this week. Next week we'll even maybe dive into some of the snooze to you bracketology that'll be going on, because we'll be heading into week 9, so a lot will be contingent on what happens in week 9, but it will also give us an opportunity to kind of see how things are kind of already slated, if things should go. He's not 100% accurate, but he's
darn close.
He's darn close, and it's snooze2 with the number 2u.com if you want to check that out. The guy is
he's on Twitter.
Yeah, and but again, that's his website, snooze2u.com, to see the brackets. So, all right, we're going to move this along. A couple more we're going to talk about quickly. Oak Park and West Bloomfield. We kind of already alluded to this.
Great crossover, OA White versus OA Red, and
West Bloomfield's got Oak Park. Then they got Brother Rice in week 9, and Brother Rice fighting for its life.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, this is where West Bloomfield's going to say we're either here to make another run or we're going to just kind of fall out because again they only have 5 wins. They need to win both these games.
This is where West Bloomfield's defense, which just has the star-studded linebacking core of Lance Dixon and Makari Page and Cornell Wheeler, one of the best linebacking cores this area has seen in quite a while. It's them versus DeJuan Mathis and that rushing attack with Stewart and Richardson, and then the guys
Rogers on the other line.
Yeah, and then
we got Anvil guys in this one,
and then guys in the secondary trying to contain Oak Park's wide receivers Malik Carr and Mike Bowens, and I think it's going to be a great game, and I'm going to be there. It's at Oak Park. It should be really exciting.
Good. It'll be interesting. And again, we already talked about it. We know the Oak Park. This is where the rubber meets the road. For Greg Carter, this is the time in his tenure where if he hadn't done it already, he's going to take a team on a run.
They won the district last year, and DeJuan Mathis got that playoff experience and that raising a trophy experience in November, and they're looking to take that next step.
Yep, and again, with not having that kind of quarterback controversy like we had last year with Graham, who went over to Rouge.
I don't know if it was so much of a controversy as it was just that Mathis was forced to sometimes either come off the field or go to wide receiver.
Right, and that's hard when you want to make a run. You kind of need, you know what I mean? You kind of don't know where you're going to go because you can have somebody in the playoffs start out and say you had Graham in the game and he wasn't doing too well, and then you put Mathis in and he's cold. And
I just thought there was more of kind of like spot duty. It wasn't like they were really sharing snaps per se, where Graham would just come in for a series or two every half.
Okay, final game, and then we'll get to our predictions quickly because we need to move this along. So Lapeer and White Lake Lakeland playing.
Another kind of interesting crossover.
Very interesting crossover.
We talked about all the upsets last week. Lapeer was about this far from being another one that was included in that. They have to tie the game apple to Drew Johnson with about 38 seconds left, and then they get an interception, which sets up a field goal. Cody Fick hit a 50-yarder at the buzzer to beat Carmen Ainsworth, who has kind of just been laying in the weeds for the last couple of weeks. This could be a tweener game for a Lapeer team that had to, get past an upset bid.
And Carmen Ainsworth has had so many tough losses this year. You know what I mean? So many just
it's a very good team.
So don't sleep on them when it comes to the playoffs if they get there.
And then Davison is the next date for Lapeer down the road. So you don't want to think that they're ever looking past anybody, and I'm certain that Mike Smith's not going to let them. But this is a tough one when that Lakeland team is going to come in and try to shock the world, I guess.
Do you think if Ainsworth's got to win the last two to go 5-4?
Right.
Do you think they'll still get in at 5-4? I mean, considering who they've played, with Davison and Graham Blank and Lapeer,
because they've got Flint and then
Port Huron even
Powers.
Midlands. I mean, as far as playoff points, you should have Traverse City West. I mean, they just had so many tough losses. We'll see. That's a story for another day. But they've got Flint Southwestern and Powers Catholic, two teams that I believe they feel they can beat. And we'll see if they get in at 5-4. Again, one of those Division II teams which may get in, may not. So, all right, let's do this. Let's get to our predictions here, and then we'll end this fine program. We have got quickly here. Let's roll through the games we just talked about. I've also got Johnny Kidd's predictions here, so we can throw his word in there too. So, Lapeer, Lakeland. What do you guys think? John is going with Lapeer in this one. Lapeer at home,
Lightning,
for this one, and going up against I'm going to take Lakeland on the road.
I'm going to go Lightning, even though I love the Bogey Lake boogeyman, Robbie Tracy, but they're not going to be playing on Bogey Lake.
Right.
They're going to be going up 75 to Lapeer. So.
John likes Lapeer.
I'll take Lapeer.
All right, so I'm the outlier. Oak Park and West Bloomfield. John is going to take West Bloomfield in this one on the road against the Oak Park team that, again, I love it. Statement game at home. Oak Park, I'm taking the Knights at home.
I'm going to go WB.
I'm going to take Oak Park.
Okay. 2-2 on that one. Port Huron Northern and Roseville. This one is I'm going to go with Northern at home. John Kidd's going Northern.
I'm going Northern.
Okay, so we're all on that one. Harbor Beach and Sandusky. Harbor Beach at home. I'm going to take Harbor Beach at home.
Sandusky.
I'm going to go Sandusky.
Okay, that's cool. If you've ever been to Harbor Beach, it's one of those things like literally you're surrounded by Lake Huron. Yeah. It's amazing. Reading and Springs. Oh, and by the way, John's taking Sandusky, so I think I'm the outlier on that one too. Right? You guys all took Sandusky. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Reading Springport, the Big 8 conference matchup. Again, another good one. John is going to take Springport on the road. I'm going to take Reading at home. I'm going home today.
I'm going Reading.
I'm going to go Springport on the road.
All right. Saginaw, Michigan Lutheran Seminary at Ithaca. I have given respect to Lutheran Seminary, and I really wouldn't be surprised if they actually won this game, but I believe Ithaca will win, whether it's close or a blowout.
Ithaca.
I got to go with my boys,
yep.
Hesbrook.
Yep. John Kidd likes Ithaca too. Yep. St. Clair Shores Lakeshore at Warren Woods Tower. I'm going to take Richie Pop and the Shoreans on the road.
I'm going to take Shoreans as well.
I'll go Tower.
All right, John Kidd's going Tower. Walled Lake Western and South Lyon. South Lyon at home in the jungle. So what they do is they put like coins inside a milk crate, and they'll be shaking those up at that game. I'm going to go.
It's a tough one, man. This is a real toss-up.
That one's a toss-up.
Because you always worry about, South Lyon. I mean, now they're in this position where it's like, man, we feel like
in the catbird seat.
We're the power, catbird seat. Maybe they kind of, maybe not.
They're not explosive.
Maybe all of a sudden Western comes out and he throws 2 touchdowns right away, and all of a sudden they're down 14-0 and don't know what hit them.
South Lyon's just consistent and
I'm going to take the Lions at home.
I'm going to go with the jungle.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Lions, but Western has that potential to be an eruptive force.
This is huge. This is huge for them if they win. A huge confidence.
Going with South Lyon in the jungle.
John Kidd's taking Walled Lake Western. Farmington and Birmingham Seaholm. This is the game I'll be filming. Farmington on the road. Seaholm going to be coming out guns a-blazing.
I'm going Maples. I'm going Seaholm.
All right, I'm going Falcons.
Jimmy DeWald
I'm going Farmington.
I'm going to go Seaholm.
Okay, and John is going to take Seaholm, so I'm the outlier. Groseal and Riverview, this one going to be played on the island. Big matchup in the Huron League.
I'm going Riverview.
I'm going to go Riverview.
I'm going to go Groseal.
All right, John's taking Groseal. Ottawa Lake Whiteford hosting Clinton. This is a good matchup. I like Whiteford at home just because of what they do.
Whiteford.
Okay, that's unanimous. Yep. Zeeland East and Zeeland West, again, they both share the same home, so they will just switch sidelines.
I'm going East.
What do you think?
I'm going to go East as well.
John's taking East, so I'll just take West. I'll take the Ducks. Mm-hmm. Muskegon, Mona Shores, and Muskegon. I'm going Muskegon. I can't pick against
It's hard to bet against Muskegon at this point. Yeah, Muskegon.
I'm seeing red.
Especially if Sincere has any sort of ankle layover. I'm seeing red. Swartz Creek and Fenton. John's going to take Fenton on the road. I'm going to take Swartz Creek at home.
I'm going to go
Dragons.
Being at home. Romeo and Chip Valley. Romeo's got a lot to play for. Yeah. They are at home. Chip Valley has got a lot to play for, meaning they're hurting with a teammate who's lost a family member. I say Big Reds just rally and beat up, actually, the Bulldogs.
I don't think they want to share this title. I think they want it for themselves. I'm going to go Big Reds.
I'm going Chip. I picked Romeo last week.
Okay.
Even though they went to overtime, they bit me, so I'm going Chip.
All right, so that's it. And those last several are what you can watch on State Champs this week, Sunday, October 14th at 9 a.m. on Fox Sports Detroit. Of course, we'll have it all over our website and social media, so stay with us. And I want to thank everybody for kind of just adjusting to this new format we're doing here. This is what the podcast will be. And we ran about an hour and 45 minutes, but hey, this is what we can do now. You can consume it in any way you like. We'll kind of break it up and put it out on Twitter as well. Thank you so much. We do appreciate the feedback we do get. We get some great comments from people who really appreciate who love high school football and just kind of want to put the podcast on in the car or wherever they are and just kind of soak it in. And we're here to do it. So, again, thank you so much for checking us out. And we'll be back here and see you next week and talk about everything leading into Week 9. So, see you then.
Getting into the nitty-gritty.
Have a good weekend.